This is the biggest crash that Bitcoin has experienced throughout this entire bull market cycle, obviously leading many to question whether the bull market is still on. We've seen some pretty decent developments through the price on Bitcoin over the last 24 hours. So I've got some good news for you, and also dispelling some of the myths around another deep, dark recession beginning to unwind thanks to Japan and the Japanese yen. Stock market down total of 10.5%, having a small bounce here in pre or post market action. You can see it got below that low of May and then closed above it. There is still support back at the 50% level, 4,900, and the previous all-time high, which is this white line, 4,800. So plenty of support to the downside. One of the more significant corrections in the run up here. And looking at timeframes going back throughout history, note last year, this is peak in July, drop into August, run up in September, another drop into October, and then the market ran away from there. So we could go back over many, many years. We can go to 2022. This is June. This is August. Market fell September, October, another drop into October. Back last year, I did go through this in great detail, and 2022, just looking at how many bottoms form in the market around that October period. So not to recap that data too much, we'll continue to focus on that should this fall continue to develop over the next 1 to 2 months. Maybe you've got some sort of rally going on here after such a significantly emotional day yesterday, which would only be natural to see some sort of bounce. We'll see whether this is the low or whether it essentially just fades out again and you get a final low as well. Also followed suit with a very significant sell-off, low to high for our 50% level. Should this be a significant low, you're looking for a close above 19,200 points to form some sort of baseline for the bull market to recover there. Otherwise, we'll have to keep adjusting our 50% to wherever the next low point comes in. The good news is it's still well and truly above the 50% level at 15,700, and the previous all-time high at roughly 16,700 points. The correction on the NASDAQ top to the bottom now is at 17%. So quite a significant correction here. And like we looked at the data in the intro, typically the short term, maybe there's going to be slightly lower prices, but looking longer term, a 17% correction is usually a pretty good entry point when you go back over history in terms of corrections for buy the dip opportunities for the NASDAQ. The US dollar doesn't seem like it's on the path of a buy the dip opportunity. That's if you are looking longer term with the US dollar. It's broken down from our weakness level. It's broken down from the 50% level, slicing through it, which is a fantastic sign that the weakness on the USD is going to continue, at least in the medium term. Maybe you've got a bounce here in the short term because of the significant volume coming in as it broke down. So look towards 103.3 for a sign of rejection. If it can get back above it, well, then we've got a little longer here with the US dollar basing out before it decides which way it's going to go next. Now for the VIX, the big talking point today as it has bounced out of our bull market support zone 11 through to 17 on the reading down here. This happens throughout bull markets. Doesn't have to stay in here for the entirety of the bull market. It can bounce out, and you can see here spike out, and then basically find its way back into the bull market zone. We go back to previous corrections for the stock market. Let's go S&P 500. You can go back to 2015 and 2018, some significant times through the bull market. That's 2015. It looks like barely anything when you reflect on where we've come from, and this is 2018. But I do remember those times. 2015 was right before the 2016 election. Things were quite tough out there, but the market recovered from that point. And also 2018. What does that look like on the VIX? There's 2015, pretty significant spikes here to 53. You've also got a 2014 there at 30, and you've got 2018 there at roughly 50 again before it finds its way back into the bull market and things carry on. So what does this mean longer term? It seems like we've got ourselves a low or around a low, because note that in 2022, the VIX went higher in these cases, and then you finally found your 2022 low. So the volatility is increased a lot because of how stable the market has been leading up to this point. So the volatility has been very, very low. So any sort of correction spikes this chart. So this was yesterday. This is C19. The price of the S&P can continue to go slightly lower, but the VIX might put in a lower high, as it has done throughout 2022 was basically that time. So here it is there. You could basically line up each of these points here with significant lows in the market. This is your banking crisis. This is the October low. Check that out there. Pretty much non-existent on the VIX. You also had the low back in April. There's another spike. And basically I could spend another half an hour in this video going back through every single spike in the stock market and marry those up to the spikes in the VIX. I don't think you want to see that on a video right now. The stocks themselves, the US stocks, bounced, in this case, Nvidia, off its 50% level. So Nvidia is showing some signs of strength above the 50% level. That's going for Apple as well, above the 50%, above the previous old all-time highs. Microsoft also doing similar things here, hit the 50% and also double bottomed at these lows. So not to say that it's over yet, so I'll have to keep watching this one over the coming weeks. And of course, that's what we'll do when it comes to the over the last 7 days, 30% correction, $20,900 correction. So call it a $21,000 correction. And now we're seeing prices head back towards 56K. So that could be the start of a nice base forming, or at least a V-shape, or the best case scenario is a V-shaped recovery from here. If not, and we start to see it grind out again, it would remind me of times like this here, back in August and September of 2023, big drop down, tried to recover, and then it came back to test those lows. And more closely would be that FTX collapse. Big collapse here, the market bounced and then died off into that low that went slightly lower, but the fear didn't go lower. And then we had higher lows form, another test, and then the market took off. That entire process took around 2 months. It might take 2 months this time, maybe it takes 6 weeks. Remember, what we've been looking at since March was the correction from this high, our 4 to 6 months below the all-time high. This is roughly around September. So if we've got another month and a half left to climb back above and get to new all-time high prices, or at the very least, get back into the strong half of the 50% level, that would be coming out at $61,400 now, with this current low at $49,000. So there is some good news to everything here, at least on the daily basis. And the next thing to look at is, of course, the weekly. We've got 6 days to go now for the weekly. The close I'm looking for is still above 53.5, ideally above 56.5 by the end of the week for more strength. And should we get some sort of godsend V-shaped recovery, the best case would be 61,400 or our 59.5, because this is the entire range here. So 53.5, 56.5, 59.5, and best case scenario would be 61.5. Now, Ethereum has disappointed time after time after time in this bull market. It closed just under its 50% level, needed to get above 24.90, managed to close at 24.20. Today, it's aiming to get above that. Ideally, needs to get a very quick close above $2,500, and then back to these lows where it broke down from. So that's at 28.5, call it around $2,900. That is going to be a key level for ETH to confirm its strength and to confirm some sort of growth, increased growth against BTC throughout the rest of this cycle. It's basically been underperforming throughout this entire period when you go to your ETH BTC chart, basically continuing down, getting rejected time after time. The good news, we all need to have some sort of good news here, some sort of hopium. You got the diagonal downtrend from the peak in September, and it came back to test it and closed above that, and just so barely closed above the previous low in May. There's the line through the bottom there, 4470. It came out and closed at 448. So it managed to hang on there ever so slightly against the Bitcoin value, which means that it has the potential to continue to consolidate, but overall, it's basically been underperforming. Now, it could come back, and I think many of us are hoping that it does. The signs there, it still needs to get back above the halfway point, 5.2. than these previous tops at roughly 5.8 to 6%. So anything under 6% is still looking relatively weak. As I'm filming, Bitcoin's hitting $56,000. I've had a lot of good news for you guys in today's video. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Share it with a friend. Let them know about how the cycles are progressing.